I love spinning in an old setting like this. This 18th century wheel has the sweetest little sounds. Now, the 3D printed bobbins are a little bit louder than the wooden ones that would normally be used on here, but they do the job. So, I use a folded leader so that I have a loop at the end, and I just tuck my wool into the end of it and pull it back on itself, and that's how I start spinning. It's a very easy way to begin, and it works. So the fiber has been combed and prepped through a diz so that it is a nice smooth piece of wool. And now you see that the long draw technique that I use, it varies depending on what the wool is. So here you can see with my left hand pulling out just how long the drafting zone is. And that drafting zone is minimum half the length of the average piece of wool. So for a Leicester Longwool, as much as 8 inches long. So my drafting zone is between 4 to 6 inches long. And that enables the fiber to slide past itself well enough to fall in line with the spin. Now, the thing that we're always taught as beginners when spinning is that you should not let the twist enter the drafting zone. You shouldn't let it enter the raw wool that hasn't been spun. However, with long draw, that's exactly what you want. And you balance the pull of the wool into the wheel with your motion to stretch the wool out and feed fiber into the strand. Now you see here there's this motion that I do, which this is apparently the unusual thing that people are seeing. This motion that I do with my left hand where I spread the fibers out and open them up so that they are a little bit of a web. Now, just like any spinner, there's going to be thin spots, and I don't like this here, so I'm joining on, and you join on by sticking the fiber to at an angle, usually 45 to 90 degree angle to your spin, and then let the fibers catch, and then you can continue. But this long draw technique is something that I have developed naturally over time. It's not something that anybody taught me. I'm just trying to understand what the wool wants. And so my technique actually varies quite a bit depending on which wool I'm using, depending on what's happening in the spin. So nothing is set in stone. And I think that's something to keep in mind as you learn how to spin and as you progress in your technique, that you're going to naturally begin to understand what the wool is asking for, metaphorically speaking, of course. So here I really want my yarn to be even. I want a nice flow into the wheel. So this spreading technique that I'm using opens up the web of the yarn, allowing the fibers to slide past themselves. But what you can't see here is that when I combed the wool and prepped it, I oiled it. Now this is something that you see when you watch YouTube and see old videos of people spinning. You'll frequently see after the wool has been washed, particularly in the Irish videos that I've seen, after the wool has been washed, the spinner adds a little bit of oil. Sometimes it's paraffin, sometimes it's vegetable oil. In my case, I use a little bit of jojoba mixed with some fragrance oils so that the wool smells nice while I'm working. But whatever you do, you need to add a little bit of that oil because it does help the fibers slide past itself as you're combing. It leads to neater, cleaner, faster combing, and I find that it makes the wool infinitely easier to spin. When you get something from a spinnery, often they tell you there are spinning oils in the wool, and that helps them spin better for the machines, and that means also that it can help them spin better for you. So using a technique like this, you really want the wool to be able to slide past itself super easy. So adding a little bit of oil to the wool when you card or comb, I've done both, it makes the wool smell nice, it makes it card nice, and then it spins so much more easily, especially when you have a complicated wool like Leicester Longwool. This wool is so hairy and so long, its crimp is very soft. It doesn't have a particularly hard crimp, so it spins almost like mohair. And I really love it. It's going to knit up beautifully. It has a really drapey texture to it, and I think over time you'll get to enjoy it too. But this long draw technique, the way I fluff the yarn open with my left fingers, this is the essence of my technique. All I'm doing is just trying to open the fibers enough that the wheel requires very little from me to turn it into the perfect size yarn. And you will really get a feel for how you have to move and what size your ply needs to be as you move on through this process. If you really want to have a go at spinning Leicester Longwool, while it could be fun to come to Colonial Williamsburg and try to find your way to the Coach and Livestock area to pick up a fleece, the best choice, I think, is to avoid having to wash it yourself and see if you can buy some. I recently was introduced to a farm in Illinois called Heritage Hollow Farms, and there's a link in the description so that you can go and visit their website and maybe pick up some roving. They have several different kinds. Most of it's Leicester Longwool, and they seem like really great people. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a lot of fun spinning.